let's go ahead and get going. It is July the 22nd, Wednesday, 6:34, and I'd like to go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is the Human Services Commission meeting. We're on go to meeting. Rita, can you do a roll call for us?
Okay. Commissioner Gunno?
Here.
Commissioner Ellis?
Present.
Commissioner Meir?
Present.
Commissioner Bottenberg?
Present.
Commissioner Kayla?
Present.
Commissioner Hall? Nope, he's not here. And Commissioner Nishioka? Nope, not here. Okay.
Thank you. We do have a majority. That's a plus. Michael, do you have our American flag?
Yes, I do. I will pull it up right now.
Thank you. Everybody, are you ready?
Ready.
Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
United
America,
States of America,
and to the republic
to the
for which
republic
it
for
stands,
which it stands,
one nation,
one nation, under God,
indivisible, with
indivisible, with liberty and
justice
justice
for all.
for all.
Thank you.
I think we're not singing.
There we go. Now I can hear again. Everybody had a chance to look at the agenda?
Yep.
I'll accept the motion to accept the agenda.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Oppose? Good. Has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes?
Yep.
Are there any changes, omissions? I'll accept the motion to accept the minutes.
Moved.
Moved.
I'll take one of those as a second, all right? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? The minutes are accepted as written. Mike, do we have anybody for public comment? I don't see anybody.
I do not see anybody either.
Okay. Wow, we're whipping right through here. So now I guess, Rita, you're on.
All right. Good evening, commissioners. So I'm just going to give you some points I'd just like to share with you guys. So next week, Mike and I have been working on a postcard with COVID19 Resources, and we're hoping that next week, if council approves, that we'll get it out to all households. It's a 4x6 household postcard that will be delivered to every household, which will outline all the resources that are available to the public. So there are 4 questions on that postcard. The first one is, do you have questions on COVID-19? And that directs folks to the King County Coronavirus line. The second question is, do you need food assistance? And then we show the 2 options of food banks based on the zip code of the resident. So that's either HopeLink or Issaquah Food Bank. And then, if you recall, Issaquah Food and Clothing Bank very gracefully decided to deliver to the whole of Sammamish, because before they were only delivering to the south end of Sammamish. So then we also have a question there of if you need groceries, if you have health issues, if you're unable to receive food. And then we've also given the number. Oh, look, Mike's bringing up. Thank you, Mike. We've also given the number of Erin at Issaquah Food and Clothing Bank for them to contact. The third question is, do you need mental or emotional support? And directing them to the crisis line. And last, the question is, do you need support or information about domestic abuse? And that is directing folks to LifeWire. And then we just have a general box for just any general information, call 211. So this is from the City Council, and the nice thing is that, as you can see at the top right-hand side of the postcard, we have this postcard translated in Mandarin, in Spanish, and in Hindi, and so people can actually go onto that link, and that will take you to the city website, and all the information you see here is translated in all those 3 languages. So that's just really an attempt to get through to everyone in the community, particularly to like seniors. And I think it's also about sort of, even if someone can read English, just receiving information in their mother tongue is super meaningful. And so we went ahead and got that translated. So that's hopefully going out to all households next week. And then, as you know, I've been making regular human service updates to City Council, and there seems to be a want from City Council to want to have data and trends. And even though we may anecdotally think that, there are certain increases in service units in certain areas, we as staff have directed them to Q2 reporting, which closed last week, and we now are going about looking at all the reporting from Q2. So on their August 11th meeting, we're going to be giving them a report about trends and data points from Q2 reporting, and we hope to send that to the Commission before we report out to the Council. So it's really sort of giving them, like Q1 was like January through March, and COVID really hadn't hit. So I think Q2 is going to be a really good way for us to try and maybe show comparisons from the same time last year. So we will send that out to you before that goes to Council. And then also in June 2020 of this year, the Department of Commerce released an application for jurisdictions throughout the state to apply for funding to support development or expansion of shelter programs. And that's going to be for 3 years. And so Sammamish is actually eligible for $300,000 in grant funding individually, or if we participate in a coordinated joint proposal, we can contribute $375,000, and that's based on per capita. And so King County has taken the lead in collaborating with cities and trying to organize a joint proposal. And so last night, City Council voted in favor of Sammamish participating in the King County joint application. The reason being is that we can't really do it individually. We don't have the capacity to follow a program. We don't have shelters within Sammamish. So we've signed on, along with all our neighboring jurisdictions, to King County, who will lead the efforts. And when it comes to the Eastside proposals, there are 2 that are really kind of sticking at this point. One is Snoqualmie Valley Shelter Services. They're currently a winter shelter, and the hope is that this funding will allocate for them to be a year-round shelter. And the second one is an expansion of the Catholic Community Services Shelter in Kirkland. And as you know, that's the only family shelter on the East Side. And currently they have a capacity for 18 families. And this increased additional funding, they're hoping to house 5 to 10 families in a motel close by, which will also, these families will also be able to have access to wraparound services as well. So that's the... that happened last night, so we've certainly we're going to be going in with King County, and hopefully both of those projects will happen. And then also the Nourishing Network cards. So I'll be picking those up from the printers either tomorrow or Friday. And we have 4,000 printed, and these are new and revised. And they're great because they really do show all the areas that residents can go and ask for information. And so there's 4,000. I'm going to give the majority to Issachar Food and Clothing Bank because they have the Nourishing Networks, and they'll be able to distribute them to different providers. And I'll also bring some back here to the City Hall, even though we're closed for the time being, and also try and distribute that to IFA, Eastside Fire and Rescue as well. And last but not least, the books are in. So far, 2 have been given out. everybody else, Nashina, I know I've coordinated with you. Let's get this, let us know, come by. Oh, look. But you haven't picked up your book though, Tom. I have one for you.
I feel like I get extra points. We had already ordered it. So anyway.
What are we going to do with the other one then?
I'm sure you'll find a good home for it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So just contact me and we'll get those books to you. And that is it. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Chair Gunnar, for application reviews.
I do have one question on the
Sure, go ahead.
postcard we're sending out. Did council not want to include rent assistance and utilities?
I think so. When the actual postcards directs folks to the city website, so that's where all the resources are as well. So they'll be able to see rental assistance. And I think it just came down to we had to make a judgment call, Mike and I. We only had so much space. And I know that, it's going to be referring people to 211. And so, they'll be able to get those resources if they visit the website. But we only had so much capacity on the card, and we wanted to try and do a big catch-all and try and ensure that, as many folks were, covered in this. So.
Thank you. Can we add Jody to being present? Welcome, Jody.
Hello, sorry I was late.
It's no problem. The good thing is you're here, right?
I think that postcard
Can we
looks
go ahead?
great, by the way, Rita. I'm so happy it's going out. I think it's a great addition, and you don't know where or how much it'll help, but it can't hurt, and I believe ultimately it will drive some help for some people.
Yeah, and I think this isn't going away anytime soon. So I feel like more and more people are going to need resources that maybe weren't needing it at the beginning. So yeah, hopefully it will resonate with certain people. Yeah.
When do you think we'll get a city newsletter back?
I'm sorry.
I asked Rita, when do you think we can get our city newsletter back?
I'm not in communications, so I'm the wrong person to ask.
Figured you're part of the in-crowd. Hey, Mike.
Yes, I believe our communication staff are planning to re-implement the printed newsletter actually on in early August. So right now they're working on writing it up and getting quotes for sending that out. So yeah, expect to see that hit your mailbox sometime in August.
Good.
Can we go ahead and open the PowerPoint then?
And I'm going to do that. And then also I just want to share, the PowerPoint that was sent in your packet, this is going to be a slightly different order. And Ashina and Commissioner Neer and Gunnar will be able to explain why, but I will quickly bring that up.
So I have to rearrange my slides that I have.
Can you see it?
So thanks, everybody. Ashina and I spent some time doing the mental wellness review. I think it went well. Tonight, we're going to cover all of the ones that we reviewed, and hopefully we can move right through them. Next. So our timeline is tonight we're reviewing the mental wellness. August the 12th will be our basic needs, and we'll start a discussion on final recommendations. And we may have to, no, we won't. The 26th we'll finish developing our final recommendations to City Council. I should say next. So let's go ahead and run through our review. My problem is I have the original order, so I have to kind of work my way through it, guys.
So Stan, we
Yes.
had talked about sharing some overall observations before we jump into
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I completely forgot.
Yeah. So do you want me to share some of those overall observations, and you're also welcome to jump in then? Should
Yes,
we begin
please
with
do
that,
that.
and then we'll go into the individual grants or
Yes.
Okay. So we had talked about sharing some overall observations just for context setting. So we felt as we were reviewing the applications, we felt that on the positive side, we felt that most applications talked about how they would adapt their services given the current scenario. So they took into account or explained in their proposals how they would, adapt their services to respond to COVID. So that was very helpful, even though we had not requested them to do so. But on the flip side, a challenge that we faced was that many organizations did not address some important parameters that are included in our scoring criteria. So, for example, many applications didn't really talk about how their program differs from other similar programs, or how have their staff worked to build strong relationships in Sammamish. And it could be because the proposal does not explicitly ask those questions, maybe. But when we were scoring these applications, in the absence of some of that information, it was hard to really assign scores. Then there were some strategic issues we were grappling with. So, for example, over the past year, we have talked about how important it is to focus on youth mental health. And we did talk about prioritizing youth mental health focused applications over others. But on the other hand, there were several applications that focused on the 0 to 8 age group. So we did recognize the importance of early intervention. But on the other hand, the more immediate need is to focus on youth mental health. So we were just grappling with these two issues. We also another issue that we talked about was do we fund applications that are really strong but do not benefit enough people in Sammamish? So where will we get the biggest bang for the buck? I mean, that was something we talked about. And then another consideration was just how some organizations had really suggested leveraging other funding to provide services in Sammamish. So through city funding, they were not providing services. Their service units or the residents served in Sammamish was not that high, but they were leveraging other funding to provide services to many additional residents in Sammamish, and that we felt was something positive in some of the applications. So that was just an overview. We thought that sharing this overview might be helpful before we jump into specific individual grant applications. Stan, did you want to add anything?
No, I think some of the biggest considerations, like you said, was how well does everybody coordinate with other organizations, and how they're going to implement it was a big issue. Are they already established? So those were two big ones that we looked at. Is there any questions so far?
Nishina, could you review the comment about youth mental wellness? And there was some tension there or something in your comments around, I didn't fully understand what you were saying there in terms of what you saw in the, in general in the applications. Could you review that point again?
Yeah, so the point I was trying to make was there that there were some applications that were more specifically focused on youth mental health. And we had identified that as a key priority, over the last year. So, so we definitely felt we should fund those applications, but there were many others that were focusing on children from, between the 0 to 8 age group. And we recognized collectively that early intervention is really important. But in terms of prioritization, one thing that we discussed was that, prioritizing the youth mental health applications over, some of the early intervention ones.
Okay.
The early intervention ones were also, many of them were also very high touch, and so they were serving fewer residents in most cases. So it was just like, it was a matter of, which ones should we prioritize when we are thinking about funding. And we wanted to be more thoughtful about, rather than trying to fund too many applications, we wanted to be much more strategic and focused. That's why we were grappling with some of these issues.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you very much.
So one of the first ones that we reviewed was CrossPATH, Youth Mental Health Wellness Services. This was a new grant proposal to continue treatment for youth mental wellness services by a duly certified, and it's a dual certified therapist. They have drop-in hours for mental health, screening assessments. As you can see, referrals. The referrals are all local referrals. This was a new grant, but it was based off of, do you remember last year when they were asking for 2 bodies and the city council could not come up with the funds to provide November? Yeah, to provide funding for 2 bodies. Well, they actually hired, they're looking at hiring one full-time, and the request was $95,534. Machina, do you have anything to add before we?
No, I think we unanimously agreed on this one, that we should fully fund them.
Yes. So CrossPATH is a fully funded. Do you want to take the next one, or?
So, yes, so on this one, we felt that, this particular application, I won't read everything that's on the screen because you can read it yourself. So we thought this was a strong application, but we decided to fund it at almost 50% because they have, for a number of reasons, one of them was that they've included a 135% increase in funding without really increasing service units. So that was one of the main reasons. Was there anything else, Stan, that stood out for you on this one?
I don't recall. Did they meet all their service units last time?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was just a matter of increased funding, but no increase in services.
Wasn't it
So
92 and 92 for individuals?
I'm sorry?
What I'm saying is 92 were served, residents and served in 2019 and projected also for 2021.
Right, but yet they wanted 135% increase. So
They want to make up for the grant that the city gave, not as far as the Human Services Commission.
And our recommendation was to do it at 30K. The next one. Okay.
Do we know
I
what,
have-
I'm sorry, Stan, and this is okay if it's not handy. It might be helpful, and I think it might have been in the other materials, but I don't want to bring it up. But do we know what we funded each of these groups last time?
So
It's at the
for-
last,
it was 26,000 I just saw. It was around 26,000.
Okay.
So we are still funding them at a higher level. That's a good question, Tom. So yeah, it was 26,000 and this time we are recommending 30,000 and the service units have not increased actually.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
we did increase funding, but just not at 135%.
yeah,
So I rearranged mine to a different order, guys. Now I'm back to where I was.
Take your time, having done this last time.
I am so sorry.
No
Sheena, do
worries.
you want to pick this one up while I put it back in my original order?
Personally, I like alphabetical.
Uh-oh.
Well, I had gotten another sheet that said 2 was going to be slide number 14, and they're not.
Would you like me to go on to the next slide?
On this one, no. So on this one, I would say, they requested 20,000, but we decided to fund them at 10,000. Again, for a number of reasons. Like, so one of them was that even though the request had doubled this year from 10,000 to 20,000, the number of people served will increase just marginally.
Okay.
And what was interesting about them, even though we had not explicitly asked organizations to do this, they were one of the few that did not really talk about COVID at all, like how they would adapt their services.
I'm sorry, I'm completely out of order, guys. I printed them and rearranged the order. I have to apologize.
It's okay. Take your time, Stan. There's a lot of moving parts, and this is hard to do over video.
You only have 19 of them, come on.
Yeah.
So shall we go on to the next one? I'll just bring
Yes,
it up and you
please.
guys can just take your time. It's Crisis Clinic Team Link.
So the crisis clinic. That's the crisis one.
Would it be easier, Stan, for you guys if you just called out which one is in your sequence, and then Rita could, I'm sure, just find it and click to it?
You know, would you like me to, Stan, would it be easier if we, because this PowerPoint was adjusted according to how much your recommendation, so the highest recommendations at the top. Would you like the actual
No, I'm good.
flow
I'm good
of?
now.
Are you
I'm
sure?
good
Okay.
now.
So I organized mine, Rita, based on the new flows.
So we're good. Okay.
And I thought I did, but apparently I didn't. So I got ahead of myself on it. Crisis Clinic Team Link. I should have wrote a side note on this.
Only $20 more than last time.
I mean, we unanimously agreed to fully fund them because of the reason I mentioned earlier, that they very specifically, their Teen Link program, has been very successful. It's badly needed. So for that reason, and the request was just for $6,020. So we unanimously agreed to fund this particular application. Stan, do you have any other thoughts on this one?
Well, I like the fact that they're available 24/7 for the teams,
Yeah.
and they're very responsive. And now with all the emotional situation going on with teens being at home, the potential for abuse, increased substance abuse, we thought it was important to fund it fully.
This one, I assume,
Questions?
this one gets funded by lots of different municipalities? I would assume just because it needs to be a scalable, big enough program, because you don't know where the call for help is going to come from, right? So it's just us being a good corporate citizen, it sounds like,
Yeah.
an important service.
Yeah.
And they do service a lot of teens here in Sammamish.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we can go to the next slide. NAMI Eastside. So NAMI Eastside, our concern here, you can see what the points are, but our concern was they didn't give us a plan on how they were going to get involved in the school system. And that was a big concern. Also, is this the one, Rita, that they held? No, this is not. I apologize.
So this
Yeah,
is
so Stan, I think there were two applications for NAMI, and I think you might be thinking of NAMI in the schools.
we
Am I in the
decided.
wrong one? Oh,
So
I'm in the wrong one.
Yeah, we decided to fully fund this one actually.
Yeah, because they also.
Some of their strengths were that they partner with communities of faith, with the South Asian community, with hospitals in the area. They had a very strong cultural inclusion lens. They partner with the Asian Counseling Services, IAWW, the Muslim Association of Puget Sound. So there were many, things that were really in favor of this application. And so we decided to, I think, fully fund this one.
We did. It was the other one. Also, they handle all age groups, which was a big plus. This is also a group that I just recently referred a couple people to. Personal note, I had a neighbor that committed suicide, and he had a couple friends who were having a hard time dealing with it. So I kind of pointed him in this direction. Whether or not they're going to reach out, I don't know. But I like the fact that it is available for all age groups. So this one is fully funded. Next slide. Crisis line, crisis clinic. Got the wrong one. Hold on a second, guys. Sheena, do you just want to start and I'll pick up?
Yeah, sure.
Thank
I mean,
you.
again, this one was one of the, so as I was saying earlier, like, services that are utilized more broadly and are likely to immediately address people's mental health concerns or any crisis that they might be having, we unanimously agreed to fund those applications. And again, the request here was for just 5,500. So, we agreed to fund it at the full level.
And it is a 20.
Yeah.
I like the fact, I think it had a lot of power knowing that they're available 24 hours a day for referral.
And
Any questions?
The difference on this one is, I'm guessing, having read them before, I think, but versus the teen one, the teen is just more focused, which means staffed by people uniquely qualified or trained. For teens, maybe staffed by teens. This is more broadly for everyone.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And the teen link gets word out in the school systems as well.
Got it. Got it.
But this is specifically meant for people who are in crisis. So it's very specifically focused on crisis intervention, which I don't think is the case with the Teen Link.
I see.
So that also is a distinction. So this is really, I mean, it's not that it just focuses on on multiple age groups, but it's also crisis intervention, which makes it really important.
Thank you.
So I think
Go
the
ahead.
next one, should we go to the next one or?
Yes, please.
So this is one on which we had a lot of discussion last year. And even though we had requested Athletes for Kids to include mentors that, who are scholars or artists, or, who are not just athletes, they apparently have not really increased the inclusiveness in their programming. They haven't done that. But we debated, we had some back and forth on this one. And, in terms of performance, they did meet their performance targets. And another thing we liked about their work is that there's quite a bit of diversity in the mentors that they have. Like, so they've said that 42% of their mentors are people of color.
Since I don't have a screen, I just have voice. Which grant is this?
Athletes for Kids.
Athletes Focus? Okay.
Athletes for Kids.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
So, so while, they had not addressed some of the concerns we had, that we had discussed quite a bit during last year's meeting, but we also felt that the application had certain merits. And so we decided to fund it at the 50% level. So their request was for 10,000 and we decided to fund it at 5,000.
And I think that's what we did last year. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I know, in fact, I recall, I think last year they asked for 10 and we gave them 5 and they showed up in one of our meetings. This is an interesting one because on some level there appears to be some value. I know, Jody, last time you had expressed some interest in, are they training enough? And I don't know that that's been fully resolved, but for me, it's hard to get overly enthusiastic relative to everything we could be doing with our money. Having said that, you'd hate to not support them on some level. It's just my reaction.
How many cases did they fund? Do you have that funding level?
They had 677 individuals last year and 725 projected for this next year from Sammamish.
I'm sorry, Joyce, I couldn't understand you. Could you give it to me again?
Last year, there were 677 individuals from Sammamish projected for 725 next year. And I know they do good because they're helping my autistic grandson.
They do good work, but we
another thing, so there was another mentoring program. I think it's the Lake Washington Links program, but that's really focused on one particular school. And this is more broad-based, right? So that's another thing in its favor, even though we did feel that they should, despite repeated concerns being raised about the program not being as inclusive, we were just wondering whether it's just their branding. They just don't want to move away from branding it as, being focused on athletes. What is it that, is really preventing them from becoming more inclusive? So that was a question we had.
I don't see why we want to change their mission.
We don't, so we left it at $5,000. That's, we can get into
After
it.
several years of 10,000.
I think it was 5,000 last year, right?
It was, but before that it was
Yeah, it was
10,000.
5,000 last year.
10,000 the year before.
Joyce, I think
Yeah,
it was
before the
last
commission
year
was
and
formed. Yes, it was 10,000.
Joyce,
Mhm.
last year and this year, I think we've named concerns.
I know, I remember.
So it's not, they don't have to change their mission, but we don't have to fund them.
Oh,
Their mission, with their current mission. So
Because we have to, you know, Jodi's point, like we have to think about what do we stand for as a commission, or what are our strategic priorities. And if inclusion is one of those big priorities, then if the mission of an organization does not align with that broader vision we have of inclusion, then we certainly can take that into account, right? And decide to fund at a certain level.
And when we get into our group discussion starting next week on all the individual grants and the recommendations, before we finalize anything, we're going to deal with all these again as a group.
Mm-hmm.
Rita, could we have the next slide?
This used to be a very strong program. I just wonder if we're missing something, or why have we changed our focus, or have they changed their focus, or what's the big drop? I don't understand. I'd like to know more.
are you talking
It
about
is,
the athletes or One Love?
athletes.
it
We
is
had
a strong program.
I think we are funding them at the same level as last year, CJ.
They really started in Sammamish, and that's why they were so strongly supported. And their biggest count is still in Sammamish.
I think we bring, last year and this year, we brought a different lens that focused on inclusion, as well as I raised concerns about their model in terms of how they are training their folks and having, they're using high school students who are not, who need training. Obviously, they're only high school students. Can't expect
And that's
them
a concern. Yeah, I agree.
And also, their staff isn't trained. Their staff there's no staff that are actual mental health providers. They're moms, which are great. Moms are great, but in terms of providing mental health or working with special needs, you need training. So we raised questions about that, CJ, which maybe those questions weren't raised previously.
So there wasn't a significant increase in projected children being served, even though there was a request to double the funding. So we decided to leave it at the $5,000 level. Read the next one. The One Love, I'll go ahead and take this one.
Sure.
So we reviewed, this is a new application. We liked the grant. However, we did come up with some questions, and Rita submitted email on our behalf, and our concerns were, do they have any connections in the city of Sammamish? How did they intend to implement their program in Sammamish? And they were saying that they would serve 1,500 units this year. And previously, they said they had served 60. Is that correct?